You'll find your seats. We wanted to wait for everybody to come down from the Cottonwood room upstairs with Dr. Vaden's lecture, but everybody's trickling back in. Quick announcement too, we'll have lunch ready for you at noon. That's going to be upstairs by the classrooms. So remember lunch upstairs. And it's my pleasure to introduce Amanda Bolus from Dumb Friends League. She's going to talk about animal behavior and handling today. Welcome, Amanda.
I've never spoken into a mic. Can y'all hear me? Okay. My name is Amanda Bolus, and like Courtney said, I do work for the Dumb Friends League. So here's just a little information about me. I'm an animal welfare behavior technician, and I've been at the Dumb Friends League for about 14 years in August to be exact. But I've been working in the animal field for most of my adult career life. I have had the pleasure to work in animal hospitals. I worked at the zoo for a while, and I got to do wildlife rehab, which was really cool. And I've been in Colorado most of my life. I moved here as a high schooler, so that pretty much is over half my life. Not to age myself, but so I pretty much consider Colorado home. So before we get started, I do have a question. Raise your hand if you have been bitten by an animal while on the job. And I will also raise my hand. So even though I work in animal behavior, I have also been in situations where I've gotten bitten. Even when you know all the stuff that you can imagine on how to prevent a bite, things still do happen. So hopefully this presentation, though, will help prevent future bites. So this is kind of what we're going to cover today. We're going to go over their body language. We're going to focus on dogs and cats today. We're going to talk about our body language, so just some things that you can do to kind of help make the animal feel more at ease. We're going to go over some safety equipment, and then we're going to talk about some other ways to prevent bites. And I'm just going to give you a little blurb for those of you who work with a local shelter, kind of what happens to your animals when you bring them to a shelter. And there will be time for questions and answers after if we have time, but definitely ask any pressing questions as we go along. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is their body language. So when you look at an animal, everything about their body is going to tell you something. But that is a lot to take in. So basically you start from the head all the way to the tail. So what I'm going to cover today is more just 5 key things for you to look at. So at least you can have an understanding of what that animal is telling you in that moment. So we're going to talk about some different positions an animal may be in. Their eyes, their ears, their mouth, their tail. We're going to also talk about modifications and how that affects us being able to read their body postures. I'm going to have you listen to a few vocalizations, because even vocalizations can tell a lot. But really the key that I want you to take away from this is behavior is fluid. And what that means is from the moment you start with an animal to the very end of it, behavior is always changing. The environment affects it, other animals affect it. So you really need to make sure that you are looking at that animal the whole time so that you don't miss out on those changes, because that is where bites can happen, because you miss something and all of a sudden that animal has escalated. And if you were paying attention, maybe you would have saw something that would have helped you prevent it. Okay, let's start with position. So these are just some common positions that you get. So let's start with the relaxed one. So dogs don't generally approach each other head on or approach us. So when they approach, they often will curve around as they approach. So that relaxed coming towards you, but not directly at you. If you have a dog that's more offering its side, maybe a little hunched, usually more towards that fearful side. On your back, so we do want to talk about on your back. Raise your hand if you have a dog that likes its belly to be rubbed. A few of you. So just a little information about belly rubs. So most dogs, it starts as puppies, they're rolling on their back and we pet their bellies. But most dogs roll on their back because they actually are feeling threatened, and then we just come along and we rub those bellies and we make a good association with it. So really what you're looking for if a dog shows you its belly is everything about that dog. Is it really tense? And you can see the difference between this relaxed on its back and a fearful dog on its back. Because you guys don't know these dogs though, if a dog shows you its belly, I wouldn't pet their belly. I would just wait for them to sit back up, because that's another way that you can easily escalate a dog. And then we want to talk about full frontal. So just like I talked about how dogs curve around, a full frontal facing dog is something to be aware of. So you can see the two difference though. Sometimes you will have a dog that is facing you that's really, really relaxed. So again, that whole idea of looking at the whole dog, but then you can see that top picture of that full frontal facing, that's not relaxed. And so when you see a dog like that, you definitely want to make sure that you're being mindful of what that dog is showing you. And we'll talk about some of those body posture changes that you can do to help reduce that stress for that dog. Does anyone have any questions about these positions? Wonderful. Okay, now let's go on to eyes. So the main thing about eyes is, are they small and relaxed, or are they really, really big? And then the next thing looking at is that pupil dilation. Do you see a lot more color, or do you see nothing but black? And then where they are looking is really important too. So dogs that are looking directly at you doing more of a hard stare. And then there's something we call a sideways stare or a whale eye. So whale eye, that term, it only applies to dogs where you can see the whites on their eyes. So if they just look sideways at you, that's not a whale eye. But if they look and they hold and you can see the whites of their eyes, that is definitely going to be that whale eye. And then just a fun fact about whale eye, where it actually gets its name, is if you can imagine a whale actually breaching the water, the first thing you often see is their eyes. So your eyes are kind of drawn to that, same idea. When a dog has that full whale eye, you're going to be drawn to that eye. But again, looking for the whites of their eyes is going to tell you that it's a whale eye. Ears. So a relaxed dog, their ears are laying wherever they naturally lay. So if you have a floppy-eared dog, they're just laying down. If you have a pointy-eared dog, they're just sticking up. They're not moving, just natural and normal. If they start to change that though, so looking at the alert dog, they can perk their ears up. Even a floppy-haired dog can perk its ears up. Alert is usually just being aware of the environment. So again, if you see that change, keeping an eye on it. And then let's talk about starting to move their ears around. So the bottom one with the husky, where they're turning their ears back, that can be, just a little bit anxious. He's also kind of closing his eyes. So he's not quite sure what's going on, but he's not stressed enough to, get really low or move away from you. The next one with a little Chihuahua, he's got his ears tucked all the way back. So that's going to show more of a fearful side. And then you have the final one of the ears actually being pinned. So a lot of animals pin their ears, and a lot of animals pin their ears before they're going to do something. Even horses will pin their ears. So pinning of the ears is definitely something to be mindful of, and looking at, again, what you are about to do with that animal and what you can change to make sure that animal doesn't actually escalate. Okay, mouth. So these are just some various things that you might see going on with the mouth. The first one I want to talk about is relaxed. So often when you see a relaxed mouth, it might be open, might be doing a light pant, but even a closed mouth can be relaxed. What you're looking for is tension in the face. So there's nothing tension around the muzzle, there's no tension in the forehead. If you see a closed mouth and you see a lot more wrinkles, maybe the eyes are brought down, then that closed mouth is not necessarily a relaxed dog. The lip lick, so it's very common that dogs are stressed to lip lick. So if you see a dog that's starting to lip lick during your interaction, or even yawn is a common stress thing. If you see both of those, making sure that, again, you're being mindful of your interactions. But the main one I want to point it out is when a dog, what we consider baring its teeth. So there's two different ways a dog can bare its teeth. Most of us know what a full-on teeth bare is, because a lot of times it comes with some sort of vocalization, like a growl. But some dogs will just flash their teeth. If you've ever seen that, usually it is the front, they flash it and then they close it. Sometimes though, that can be misunderstood when you see a dog do a submissive grin. Raise your hand if you've seen a dog do a submissive grin and you understood it was a grin. So the difference is not just the teeth. So I don't want you to just look at the teeth. Again, the whole idea of that whole body postures. So a dog that's doing more of a submissive grin, we call it an appeasement posture. So appeasement, if you've never heard that term, is basically a dog that is perceiving a threat, and sadly, you are that threat, and they are trying to do things that help you change your ways and not be so threatening. So they're gonna make themselves smaller. They're gonna look away from you. They may wag their tail, but it's a really small wag. And then often they will do this little submissive grin. Some people call it smiling as well. Whereas baring of the teeth is gonna be a lot more tense. often full frontal facing, and it comes with those vocalizations. So obviously if you see a dog flash his teeth, the first thing I want you to do is be mindful. Be like, oh, he just showed me his teeth. But take a few seconds to then look at the rest of the dog and see what he's telling you, to see if he's doing more of an appeasement, submissive grin, or if he is full on flashing your teeth as a warning. Any questions about the teeth flashing? Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the tail. So the tail is something that we are often drawn to, and it's something we can be like, oh, look at your tail. It's wagging, you must be happy. But there are a lot of different wags out there, so don't think just because you see a wag that it is actually a good thing. So you're looking for two things when it comes to the tail. First is the position. So just like with every other body posture about relaxed, a relaxed tail is going to basically lay where it's supposed to lay. If it's tucked down or low, that's often going to be more of that fearful side. And then if it's up high and stiff, that's usually a dog that is more tense, maybe a little on the defensive side. The next thing to look at is the wag. What kind of wag are you getting? A happy dog is going to be that loose, all over the place wag. A fearful dog is going to be either a low wag, or if it's tucked, you may just see kind of the tip moving back and forth. And then that stiff wag is usually a slow wag. And if you've ever seen that, it's actually kind of intimidating. So basically it's up high, and they just move it really, really slow back and forth. So again, looking for position, but also looking for the wag can tell you a lot. And then just another fun fact, the direction that a dog wags its tail can actually tell you something. So for those of you who have dogs, when you get home, watch them wag their tail. If they wag it to the right, they are generally happy. If they start wagging it to the left, they're a little bit more on the anxious side. And even our dogs in our homes can be anxious in certain moments, and you may see them start to the left. So take a look at the next time and see, especially if you have a nervous dog and you're taking them to situations, watch how they wag their tail, and that in itself could actually give you a lot of information about your own dog. Okay, so let's talk about those fun modifications. So the common modification is the ear thing. And some of these are kind of a bummer, like the one for the bully breeds where they take most of their ear away. And then even with the pointy guy. So when you take away something from the ear, what it does for us, but also what it does for other dogs, because dogs use communication when they talk to each other, body language, is it can kind of alter things. Same with docking of the tail. Dogs that don't have a tail will still move it. If you've ever seen a Rottweiler nubbin or even a little dog tail, they still do wag it. Sometimes dogs that don't really have the tail will also do more of a full body wag since they can't really do that tail component. But again, sadly, because we have docked those tails either through surgery or through breeding, and I did list a few breeds that actually don't have tails, we are taking away one of those key postures that we could be using to communicate, or they can be using to communicate to each other. The thing I do want to point out in your job is sometimes you do come across animals that are missing pieces simply because of the situation they're in. So frostbite, injury, things like that. So if that's the case, it's not necessarily something that was purposely docked or bred. Same idea though, making sure that you look at the entire dog if you're missing one of those key factors. Okay, any questions about dog body postures? Wonderful. Okay, so now we are going to go on to vocalizations. Check the time. So I'm going to play 2 videos of dogs barking. If you are comfortable, I encourage you to close your eyes. And the reason I encourage that is because I want you to listen to the dogs barking without seeing their postures. I'm going to play it twice so you can see the postures with the bark. But initially, I want you to close your eyes because I want you to look for, or listen, for things like changes in tone, how deep the bark is, how long and drawn out the bark is. So if you're comfortable, please close your eyes, and I'm going to play both, and then I'll tell you to open your eyes. Oh, where's my volume? Okay. So if you want to open your eyes, we're going to watch them one more time. This time I want you to look at the body postures. So with just hearing the tone, did you kind of picture that kind of dog before you even saw that dog? So even just if you enter a property and dogs are barking, you can gather a lot of information simply by the way those dogs are barking. Sometimes the dog on the other side, they're excited to see you, maybe they're frustrated, especially if they're chained up. And then the other dog, maybe more so when you start to actually approach and get in his space. But again, that vocalization is really important to help you know how the dog is kind of already feeling. But just like with body postures, vocalizations can change as well. So making sure that friendly, happy bark, that you don't just approach full on and you just jump right into doing whatever you need to with that dog, because that dog can also simply change. Even though initially it's doing that happy go bark, if you actually are then putting your hands on or you have to get that leash on that dog, that dog may quickly change into the other dog. Questions about body postures or vocalizations for dogs before we move on to cats? You guys are a quiet bunch. Make you talk. Okay, well, I will make you participate in just a second. That is a great question. So a lot of curly tails are going to actually still curl or still do the wag. Usually it looks like a helicopter. It's like going all over the place. A curly tail wag, though, have you seen like a husky before, how mostly it curls up? They can straighten it out. And even one that has more like a piglet tail, that it naturally curls a lot more, they can actually even try to straighten that out a little bit more. They can pull the whole curl component down. So I would still look for placement of a curly tail. I would still look for if it's wagging, what is that wag? Is it kind of more of a stiff wag? Is it more of a helicopter that it's all over the place? And unfortunately with a curly tail wag, usually they're more like closer to the body. So they're not as clear to see as maybe like a big fluffy husky tail, but they are still going to generally tell you the same thing. But again, if you can't really read what the dog is telling you with that one feature, then just look at the rest of the features to get a better idea across the board. I will tell you that sometimes there's conflicting body postures where they're showing you one thing with their tail or a different thing with their mouth and their eyes. So you kind of want to just look at the majority of what the dog is telling you. But if you're not quite sure, err on the side of caution and just move really slow, maybe come back to that dog. Does that answer your question? Awesome. Okay, so now let's go on to cats. So again, we're going to start with cat positions. So the first one we're going to talk about is that relaxed position. So for those of you who have cats, think about your cat laying sprawled out somewhere, soaking up the sun. There's no tension in that body. So there's a lot of different positions that a cat can be when they're relaxed. It's very much based on individuality, including the guy that's on his back. So some cats will lay on their back when they're comfortable and when they're relaxed. So kind of like we saw with the dog who was showing you its belly, but he was really, really relaxed. So again, if you see a cat on its back, it could be a good thing. However, it could also not be a good thing. So if you move over to the picture with the two cats, the one cat that's gotten on his back, he is doing it more in a defensive posture. So what I mean by defensive, if you don't work with cats, they have many, many, many weapons. They have all 4 feet and they have their mouth. So when a cat is feeling like they need to defend themselves, often they will flop on the back so that they have everything ready to go after the other animal or to go after the other, and essentially more as if the threatening thing comes towards them. So if a cat is on its back, the first thing we want to remind you is don't pet its belly. Cats are not like dogs. They do not want you to touch their belly. But the other thing is, what is that cat telling you? Is it in a relaxed position? And I can more likely guarantee the cats that you come across are not going to be on their back because they're in a relaxed position. They're going to be on their back because they are in that defensive state. So really be cautious when they throw themselves on their back. Full frontal facing, so just kind of like with the dog, it is something to be mindful of. That means that cat has put them in a position to potentially advance on you. The one that he's kind of crouched, if you've ever seen a cat often do the front, I'm going to demonstrate. So they basically have their front down with their butt up, and they are in a position that they can come forward. That doesn't mean that they're automatically going to advance on you and hurt you. Some cats will do that as kind of a play or overstim, which we'll talk about in a second. But if a cat is facing you, that is something, again, to be mindful of. Most cats, though, if they're put in a position, they won't necessarily advance. They're going to try to back up. And if you think about their size comparative to our size, we are giants compared to them. If they were to get into a fight with us, who would win? At least from their perspective, who would win? So most cats want to go away. So you can even see the difference between these two cats, the one that's crouched down and ready to advance, but the little kitten, his weight is actually on the back, and he is ready to backpedal. The thing to keep in mind from this picture is, can he back up anymore? No. So if you have a cat that backs up from you, but gets to the point where they can't back up anymore, they may quickly change their mind and come towards you. Some cats come towards you simply to get away from you. So they're trying to get maybe up and over, but sadly, if they come at you, they're going to be scratching, possibly biting as they go. So we don't want to put a cat in a position where it feels like it has to actually come at us. And then just like with the fearful dog, that sideways, that back hunch, that is often a good sign that that cat is a little fearful. Any questions about these positions? Wonderful. Okay, so let's talk about eyes. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is that classic cat eye, so the guy with the blue eyes. So when we think of cat eyes, if you like to make cat eyes on your own eyes, it is that nice, soft, has a little shape to it. The other type of eye is the wide eye. So again, they look like big saucer dishes. The next thing that I want you to look at is the pupil dilation. So kind of just like with dogs, I feel like with dogs, you don't really see the pupil dilation as well as you do with cats. So full dilation, where you see very little color, that is definitely a very fearful cat. Cats can also do a partial dilation, so you see a lot more black, but you can still see color. And then on the bottom one, cats can also constrict their pupils. You will see this two different times. One, when a cat is potentially anxious, but you will also see if a cat is staring at you, very tense, full frontal, they may constrict their pupils before they actually advance on you. So definitely keeping an eye on that pupil dilation or constriction. And then sometimes there is something that contributes to the shape of the eye, and we call that furrow brow. So they're pulling their brow down, which makes it look more like a potential, classic cat eye. But in this case, again, looking at the whole cat will tell you that this cat is not a relaxed cat. This cat is very stressed out. Okay, ears. So classic cat ears are up, pointy. Where are they not? Most cats, we're going to show you a few modifications with cats with different ear things, but most cats have pointy ears unless something has happened to their ears. So if it's upright and not moving, that's a relaxed cat. The next one is hard to see in a picture, but you can kind of see that black cat has one ear slightly turned back. So cats are really in tune to their environment, and they will rotate those ears around to try to pick up sounds. The sounds could be something scurrying through the grass. The sounds could be somebody approaching them. Cats are technically both predator and prey. And as a prey species, they really have to make sure that they are aware of their environment for their own safety as well. So if you are engaging with a cat and his ears are all over the place, he may just be, listening to what's going on. As long as you're seeing some other relaxed postures, not too much to worry about. But if all of a sudden, eyes change, cat tenses up, then those ears pivoting may be an indication that something more is to come. And then let's talk about placement of ears. So looking at the bottom cat, so when cats are fearful, they'll often put their ears to the side. We call those airplane ears. Think of little airplane wings. When a cat is annoyed or agitated up to the top, they might turn their ears back a little. And then cats will also pin their ears. So just like we talked about with the horses and with dogs, pinning of the ears is something that you do want to be mindful of. That may be an indicator that that cat is going to escalate. Okay, mouth. So let's talk about the two stressy ones first. So cats also do lip lick. So a little bit more about lip licking if you're not familiar with that. Lip licking is basically a calming signal. Some people call them displacement signals. The cat is uncomfortable, the dog is uncomfortable, and they're just trying to find something to do with that kind of nervous energy. Same with that yawning. So they're trying to kind of expel that energy a little bit. So if you see those two things when you're engaging with the cat or again with the dog, again, it's just something to be mindful of. The two I mostly want to focus on is the open mouth. So a lot of times when a cat opens its mouth, something noise-wise comes out of it, be it a hiss, a meow, but there are times when cats open their mouth and nothing comes out. Raise your hand if you've seen a cat just open its mouth and nothing comes out. So more often than not, the cat is actually smelling. And I know that sounds really, really weird that a cat is smelling with its mouth. So another fun fact, because I love fun facts, is cats have something called a Jacobson organ. It is on the roof of their mouth. It is a little tubular organ that goes between their hard palate and soft tissue of their nasal septum. I had to write that down. It's best described as a taste smell organ. So basically what they're doing is they are taking so much in from their environment simply by opening that mouth. They're breathing it in, and then it is going through their throat, and again, they're understanding more of what's going on. Another species actually does that. If you've ever seen snakes, snakes will put their tongue out and then bring it back. They are actually tasting and smelling that environment component of figuring out what's going on as well. So a really cool thing that cats do. Obviously, if a cat opens its mouth, just like everything we talked about, be mindful of that because something more may come, hiss, growl. They may just kind of open their mouth, especially if they're moving towards you with an open mouth. I'd probably be mindful and not be like, oh, are you sniffing? What's going on? Usually a sniffing cat is over on the side and just has their mouth gaping open. If you have cats, watch your cats do it. It actually is a really cool thing to just see them kind of open their mouth and take in the environment. Okay, tail. So the thing we want to talk about with cats' tails is location, but also movement. Movement-wise is cats do not wag their tails. They are not dogs. If they are wagging their tails, it is an indicator of something. Some relaxed cats, the guy in the top, when he has this question mark tail up here, it will do this sway thing. Some cats will also do the base of the tail where they move it. If you have a cat and you're petting it and it's vibrating the base of the tail, it's actually a happy cat. However, if you have a cat that has just put his butt up to the wall and he's vibrating the base of the tail, he's probably actually marking on the wall. So vibration for pets, good thing. Vibration for wall, not a good thing. Overstim cats will also move their tail. They may move the tip. They may move the whole thing around. So again, cats do not wag their tails. So if you're seeing a level of movement, especially more lashing, definitely keep an eye on that. And then placement. So again, a relaxed tail is usually that up, that question mark. Tail low, going to be more on the anxious side. Tail wrapped really close, kind of protect themselves, more on the fearful side. And then cats can also puff their tail up. So the guy at the top, you can see not only has his tail puffed, but he also has the fur on the back puffed up as well. So basically he's trying to make himself look really big, that classic Halloween cat maybe you've seen. Often they also do that thing of movement. They go like this. Running away from you. So they're puffed up and they're moving away weirdly and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna mess with you. And then there's the overstim puffed up cat that is usually lashing it all over the place. Raise your hand if you know what overstim means. Okay, a few of you. For those of you who don't, basically it's a heightened state of arousal. It's usually brought on by a lot of frustration. So in the shelter, we see a lot of overstim cats because they do sit in a kennel day after day. But even a cat in a home can be easily overstimulated. Sometimes it's an age thing, so they're just young, they have a lot of energy, but sometimes it is a more personality. You can even have an 8-year-old cat that gets overstimulated quickly. The main thing about overstimulation is what they may escalate to. So it's usually escalated by some sort of stimulation, be it handling or play for your own cats. But the concern is how far will they take it? Some cats will only do that tail thing and never go beyond that. Other cats will go all the way to swatting at you with or without claws. Some will place their mouth on you. Some will full on go for a bite. So if you are engaging with a cat you don't know and it's showing you overstim, the best thing to do is err on the side of caution. So I'm going to show you a fun video of an overstim cat in a home environment. So even in his own home, he still came after his owner. He probably just did that bat thing and ran away. But working at a shelter, we get plenty of cats relinquished because they didn't just run up and bat, they actually ran up and bit their owners. Most people who relinquish an overstim cat don't understand it, and they just think their cat is being aggressive. People who understand it have learned to kind of manage it. I have an overstim cat, and I actually know what buttons to push. If I wanted to push him too far, obviously I don't. So you kind of learn what your cat is tolerant of and what not, and what those signals are that they're about to escalate. Okay, so let's talk about modifications. So when it comes to cats, modifications are made from breeding. So these are 3 common ones. If you've never come across these, the first one is a Scottish fold, then American curl, and then the Manx. The Manx is the guy without the tail. But again, just as a reminder, sometimes when you deal with your types of cats, they may be missing parts because of injuries. Frostbite, pretty common with cats. So just making sure that if you aren't able to see those postures clearly because they're missing one, then looking at the rest of the cat. Okay, so now we're going to do some vocalization with cats. We're going to do the same thing we did with dogs. So again, if you are comfortable, if you would close your eyes, I'm going to play them both with just you listening with your eyes closed, and then I'll let you see the difference. Okay, if you want to open your eyes if they weren't already open. I think there's another cat in this video because there's an echo. So again, is that kind of the cats you were picturing in your mind by hearing those vocalizations? So a lot of times with cats, when they're stressed, the volume of their meow will change, so becoming a lot deeper. Also, how long it is. They draw it out a lot, so really just kind of listening for those changes when you enter a space and you hear a lot of cats meowing. Any questions about cat postures and cat vocalizations before we move on? Yes, great question. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Has anyone ever heard the term SNR or TNR? Raise your hand if you've heard that term. So SNR is shelter neuter release, TNR is trap neuter release. So they will actually, when they bring a cat in and they spay or neuter it, they will tip the ear. They just take a little bit off of it. And really that is just so if you see a cat out and you see that tipped ear, you know that it has at least been spayed or neutered. So it's just a nice quick visual thing to be able to see that. Yeah. No, it is one side. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to picture it. So yes, it is the same side that they do for all cats, so that at least when you see it, so the left. So thank you for those of you who said left. So yeah, if you see a left tip ear, that is a spayed neuter cat. If something's going on with the right ear, who knows what's going on with that cat? It could be an injury that occurred, because they won't tip both ears, so it's only going to be that left. Good question. So we're not going to talk about other species, but I know that you guys do deal with other species. So if that is a reoccurring thing for you, you can definitely find me. I am going to stay all the way through lunch, so I can talk to you about some basic body postures on some of these other species as well. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our postures. The first thing I do want to touch on is the idea of emotions. So you guys work in a very emotional field. You go out on really, really tough cases. The main thing that we just want to remind you guys is emotions do affect our postures. So if you are about to go on a tough case, just really taking the time to process through your emotions before you get out there and actually start working with the animals. Because unfortunately, when we are feeling very emotional, it can cloud our judgment and it can put us in really tough situations with the people you're dealing with, but also with those animals. So again, just keeping that in mind, if you're having a bad day, those animals around you are also going to see that you're having a bad day. Okay, so let's talk about just some key reminders when it comes to our postures. These are just things to keep in mind when you are engaging with animals. They will help, alleviate some of that stress and fear that the animals are experiencing. So the first thing is no direct eye contact. Eye contact is intimidating for a lot of things. If someone stares at you for several minutes, eventually you're going to be like, oh my God, why is this person staring at me? So animals are the same way. The only exception to this rule is dogs that were bred to herd. If you've ever dealt with herding breeds, border collies, Australian shepherds, they do stare, and they stare a lot. And that is because that's what they were bred to do. They orient on what they're about to herd, and so they really want to maintain that focus. So if you have one of those breeds staring at you, it's probably a breed thing, but I wouldn't just assume, oh, it's just because you're a border collie. Looking in at the whole dog to see if there's more going on than it just actually staring. But staring for most of us is a very intimidating posture, so try not to do direct eye contact. Look at them, look away, look at them, look away. Soft eyes, do some soft blinks. Offer your side. So if you're standing directly at an animal, that can be kind of intimidating. So simply just act of offering your side can make yourself less intimidating. If possible, wait for the animal to approach you. Obviously, that probably is rare in your case that you can let the animal approach you. But if you can, let them do that. If you do have to approach them, remembering to arc around as you approach, because again, animals don't approach each other head on, so you don't want to approach them head on. Don't bend at the waist, so if you do have to leash a dog or you're about to handle an animal, just be mindful of bending at the waist. That can be pretty intimidating as well. Be mindful of where you're petting if you're touching. Again, some animals have some sensitivities. Maybe they have an old injury that occurred, and so don't just assume that you can touch them all over. Same thing with a small dog. Don't assume that you can just pick up that small dog. He may not want you to. And then keeping your voice calm and low. So I like to say it, your inside voices. Some dogs do respond to that high-pitched voice, but not all do. So start with a nice calm voice, and then you can alter it if you notice that maybe the dog is young and he's responding more to a fast, happy talk. And then here's just a fun little infographic. You've potentially come across this on what not to do. There's a lot of things of what not to do. And then 2 little things at the bottom of what to actually do. And then here's a fun thing about where to pet a cat. So as you can see, the belly, they will kill you. So do not pet the belly. The best place to pet a cat that you actually don't know is usually the head. But you want to be mindful of not just going straight down on the head. Offer your hand, let them sniff. And honestly, if you go right here up to the cheeks and then up around the head, that's usually a safer bet when it comes to petting cats. Okay, so then one more thing I want to touch on with our postures is if you are engaging with an animal, especially if you're just focusing on petting, remember the idea of consent checks. So what that means is we want to make sure that the animal is okay with what we're doing. Obviously, some of your jobs, if you're doing a vet exam, you have to get through your vet exam. But if you're more hanging out with an animal and you're kind of just focusing on petting and trying to relax it, make sure that it is relaxing for that dog. So the first thing you do is you pet, and then you pause, and then you see with the dog. Is it telling you yes? Is it encouraging you, pawing at you, nudging at you, moving closer to you? Or is it telling you no? One simple thing we often don't see is, does it do nothing? So if it just stays there frozen, that is still a sign that it's not necessarily loving it. Are they moving away from you, or are they doing those classic displacement, which I put a few at the bottom? So scratching, looking away, lip licking. So if they're showing you that they're clearly uncomfortable, then if you don't have to be petting them, just stop. If you are doing some vet exam, just be mindful if they're uncomfortable with you touching them, that the more you continue, something could change, that animal could escalate. And then here's just a little infographic about that. So yeah, it's just, again, take those time, even with your own pets. There is a great YouTube video out there of a lady that has 2 dogs. She actually does this consent check with them. So just type in consent check YouTube videos. And she has one dog that's a little more nervous, and she does the same thing for them. And her dog, after she pets it, clearly tells her no. And it is her own dog. She's had it for several years. So even our own dogs don't always want us, even our own cats don't always want us to pet in that moment. Any questions about our body postures before we move on? Okay, so now I'm going to show you a couple videos. Before we get started, though, I do want to let you know that these videos do contain some graphic material, and the graphic material being that these dogs do end up biting the person in the video. If this is triggering for you, if you have been through something recently and you need to step out of the room, please do. I want you guys to take care of yourself. The first video is of a news anchor getting bit. Raise your hand if you've heard the name Kyle Dyer. So this is a video of Kyle Dyer. It happened in 2012. Some background around that video is there was a dog that fell through some water in a lake or a reservoir or something, and a Good Samaritan saved the dog. And the next day they were on the news, and they were in the back of the house for probably like 15, 20 minutes. They kept going and showing the dog, and you can clearly see the dog is stressed just being in the back of the house. And then they bring the dog onto the set, and you can see in the video, again, just how stressed. And that's the main thing I want you to look when you watch these videos, is how stressed that dog is leading up to the bite. And then my second video is a actual case. It is an ACO that went out, I believe it is for a dangerous animal call. And the person that gets bit is actually a sheriff's officer. So you may be familiar with the sheriff's officer that gets bit. So again, I do want to make sure that you are aware of that. So feel free to step out if needed. Does anyone need to step out? Okay. So So this first video is a quick video. It's about 30 seconds, and the bite does occur till near the end. And I want to tell you that just so you're not sitting on the edge of your seat waiting for this bite to actually occur. And after it goes through, we're going to talk about it and mostly focusing on what she could have done differently.
He was hanging on. I was so happy. I just adore dogs. But I'm especially happy to meet you after your story yesterday. What is a mastiff, right?
He's a Dogo Argentine.
Oh, okay.
So he's an Argentine mastiff.
Okay, okay. You're gorgeous. You're gorgeous. Oh, I'm so glad you're okay. You too. You too. Thank goodness for you. Gosh, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day. Oh my God. Very good.
Okay. All right.
And then when they went on to snow removal. So I heard of you already saying, oh my God, she's way too close. So here's your participation. I'm going to make you participate. So raise your hand and tell me something that you saw her do, but what she could have also done differently. The only good thing about this case is this dog was not euthanized. And the reason being is Kyle Dyer, actually, she did recognize her mistake and she tried really hard. One, she was advocate, like, I don't want this dog to be euthanized. It was something I did. And 9 News actually did a lot of series of educational pieces after this about dog body postures, about how to engage with dogs. And so that was the good thing that came out of this. And she did continue to be a news anchor. She did have to get some plastic surgery to be able to come back on the air. But so something good came out of it. But again, this is something that clearly could have been prevented. And again, if you get a chance and you're not familiar with this case, go look for YouTube videos about the leading up to the bite and again, behind the scenes. If you have ever done a news thing, they usually keep you in a different room with a couch and they keep showing you every, couple minutes saying what's coming up. And so it is during that time when they are showing what's coming up that you can see the dog is with his owner and then that Good Samaritan. And you can just see that progression of him getting more and more stressed. There's a lot of lights in that area. And then they come out onto the main thing. And so he's already way over threshold before this even happens. Good job. Thank you for the participation. Okay, so for this next video, this is a long video. I'm not going to show you the entire thing. This is somebody's body cam. There were 3 angles of this. I picked this one because what you can see is I want you to look at the moment the gentleman brings his dog out. From that moment, the dog is already stressed. He actually ends up lunging at one of the ACOs before he even gets down to where the sheriff's offices are. And then watch also how he engages with his own owner. He is even stressed with the way his owner is acting with him. This is going to be about a minute and a half and a little over, yeah, it's about a minute into the bite. So I do apologize. There is a lot of anticipation and build up as we go through this. So we'll watch it and then we'll talk about it. Oh, it's frozen. Why are you frozen? Shit. Stuck on the PowerPoint. He's this way. This way. He's stuck on this one. This is the PowerPoint one. Sorry, technical difficulties. So it's on this one. I need to close this out.
Oh, it's like frozen.
Yeah, it's working on this thing.
Sorry, everybody. Okay.
Wonderful. You can always bring back my presentation. Nope. So yeah, the video is not the PowerPoint. It is here, but it's just not showing up there. Oh, there you go. Good job. Okay. Yay, thank you. Okay, are we ready? Okay, so he goes inside, gets his dog, and that's where mommy and him go. Go get your dog. There we go. Okay, go get his dog. So drop him out when he brings his dog. Oh. Okay, big man, let's go. It's a big dog.
Brutus.
You know what? Why don't you chill here and I'll pull the truck around? Okay? You have him. You have control of him. If you don't, you need to take him back in.
Hi, buddy.
Yeah.
Hi, Brutus.
See it?
Almost.
Oh, he's,
Can you sit? Brutus.
hey, he's good. He's just
Hi,
like
Bubba.
fast movements and shit.
Hi, Bubba.
Yeah, Brutus, hi.
Hi.
You can pet him. He just wants to be pet.
Yeah, we just usually let him smell us first.
Hey, see, you done fucked up. You're going to jail, bro.
It's okay, buddy.
They took his kids, you know, 'cause they took your kids.
Oh, damn, buddy. You just had a baby.
Oh, he's good.
Alright.
He likes you guys
Oh, there
more.
we go.
He just got upset.
Scratchy.
It happens.
Yeah. Alright.
It happened to him at least twice. His name's Brutus?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
You
How
see,
old
like
is he?
how he's, almost 3.
3? So,
This is a solid dog.
is it Bull Mastiff or?
He's a King Corso.
Okay.
It's the Bull Mastiff down.
Right. Yeah, he's an Italian Mastiff, basically.
Yeah, what's he doing? He just don't know, like, they took the kids. Yep, you're done. Here,
Okay.
you got Margo.
I'm not putting him on.
I think so. I think the owner, because again, they can read off of what we're saying, and especially if they have a connection with their owner, they are going to feel that connection. Okay, so we'll keep trucking along. We just have a few more things. So I do want to. Okay, so we're going to go through this fairly quickly because I don't have as much time because the governor is coming. But I just wanted to show you some safety equipment that maybe you're not familiar with. I do know that not every county is in a good position to get some of this stuff. So I just want to again show you real quick. If you just want to look at, there's some good things to have on your person, and then there's some good stuff to have into the truck. First thing, a towel. Have a towel. Towels are great. You can throw it over a dog if needed to pick up a little dog. Just even covering the face sometimes on a dog can help kind of alleviate some of that stress. Catch pole, most of you are familiar with a catch pole, so having that in your truck. But there is another crate leash, and it's called a leash pole. This is nice because it is very similar to a catch pole, but it's not as scary for the dog. You can put it on like a regular leash, so that is what comes at them. But then you have the pole to be able to push out and keep them away if needed as a leash pole, but still catch pole. Then there's the Y pole. Looks more like a crutch. So this is nice if you're going into a case where you maybe have a dog that's going to be a little bit more forward. You can use this to block them off. You can put it on their chest to kind of keep them back. You can also use it for restraint against a solid thing like a wall. Put it on their shoulder to keep them held against something. Sure. You can be my Vanna White. And then this is a baffle board. So this is great if you have a dog coming at you or you need to push a dog back into a corner. You don't want to use your body to push a dog back, so definitely having some sort of board between you to keep your legs safe. Okay, so now we're going to move on to cats. So these are things we're going to kind of go through. So towels for cats are great. You can make burritos. I don't have towels for everything yet. You can make burritos for it, or you can just wrap a cat up and again put the whole thing in a carrier. Gloves are great, but just know that these kind of gloves that cover your whole arm don't have the dexterity that you need, so a towel is going to be better. I didn't bring these. Most of you are probably familiar with traps and with feral dens. So these are more if you need to confine a cat. Nets, so if you want to pick up both nets. This is the clamshell net, the green one, and then the classic butterfly net. They each work in various different situations, so having a variety. The green net, for instance, is not really good for fat cats. Oh my gosh. And then shields for cats. So there's some great things that you can do for shields for cats. And these you can make. You don't have to go purchase these. You can make them in different sizes. And then the grabbers, which I didn't bring, you can get at any Walmart. And you can get something away from the cat. You can throw a towel over a cat. Okay, I just have time for these last two things. So I just want to go over a few more things to help prevent bites. When you're out on cases, especially if you're going on a large case, make sure that you go with a buddy if possible. Having someone who can keep an eye out while you're engaging maybe with the owner or you're going out and looking at different animals. Remember to always face, you can sit down if you want. Remember to always face a dog. You don't want to turn your back on a dog. You're not going to see those changes in postures. Just like you never want to run from a dog. If you run from a dog, you're going to trigger that dog and it is going to come after you. Know where your exits are. So if you are going into a confined space like the basement or you're going into a pen, make sure you are aware where the nearest exit so you can get out. Know the facts before you're proceeding. If you are going to a dangerous animal case, what are you there for? Did it escalate to actual biting? And again, don't be petting that dog if it's a bite. Fight, never break up a fight with your hands. That dog, especially, they don't know you, but they will also turn and bite their own owners during a fight. So definitely don't try to break a fight up. Loose animals, if you come onto a case and there's a lot of loose animals running around your truck, try to scare them off. Use a horn to get them to move away. And then never chase a loose animal. Use your equipment. Practice low stress handling, and then go with your gut. If you are feeling uncomfortable, don't go with it. And then last picture. This is just some of the good things that you guys do. These are some of the animals that you have helped. Know that your job is tough, but you guys are wonderful, you're awesome, and you are saving lives. Yeah, no worries. Gave me a false sense of security and told me I was bad. Okay, cool. And I will be here for questions. This is also my email address. If you want to take a picture, feel free to send me any questions as well. Okay, yeah, if you just want to put it by the wall.